Well, hello, and welcome to the Thursday edition, or as we call it around here, the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand, in for Todd again today. Don't worry, Todd's just resting the pipes up for another day. He'll be back in the chair tomorrow for the fabulous Friday edition of the program, and I know that he's looking forward to it. Lots to talk about going on. My goodness, there's been a meeting of the premiers and the prime minister over tariffs. There's the discussion about the GST holiday that the NDP said no, but now maybe we'll do as long as they take the $250 checkout. We can talk about that today. There's all kinds of things going on. But today's a very special day here on the program. And for longtime listeners of the show, you will know that our next guest has been in here many times. He comes in usually about once a month, and we talk about all things mortgage, and we like to refer to him as our mortgage guru. In November is Financial Literacy Month here, and this has become a bit of a tradition that one Thursday during Financial Literacy Month, we welcome our financial or our mortgage guru and the host of Mortgage 101, Clinton Wilkins, into the studio to do a live edition, and that's what we're doing today. Clinton, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be back in the studio. I mean, we used to do this all the time, obviously pre-COVID, but,
right.
We're in a different world. And
yeah.
I love the format of what we're doing for Mortgage 101 right now. But, it's great to be here. And we're going to take some calls from our listeners in the back half, which is awesome.
We got a whole hour planned with Clinton today. We're going to talk a little bit about mortgages, obviously, but we're also going to talk about, and we're going to kind of focus on financial literacy and how important it is to know what's going on out there, because we deal with this stuff as citizens in the community every single day, and it's almost shocking to hear how much people don't know about debt and insurance and mortgages and just the day-to-day stuff that we deal with every day.
Well, people aren't taught this in school. It's things that people learn along their lives. And I think people make a lot of mistakes when we're looking at like financial topics. And there's still a taboo. We're not talking about these subjects with our spouses. We're not talking about it at the dinner table. But I think with this Mortgage 101 show that we have been here, I mean, we've been doing this for 6 years. We've broken down some of these barriers. And we're talking about some of these subjects that, it's like lifting the rug up a little bit. Let's talk about it. Let's look in the mirror before we look out the window. And November is a great time to think about it. Sometimes it's a great time to have a reset before going into the holidays. Before the show, we talked, the holidays can be one of the most challenging times for consumers. I think learning about where your finances are right now and making a plan going into the holidays is really, really important.
Because your finances are more than just your bank balance, right?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's what some people do. I think some people manage their finances. They log into their online banking every morning and say, okay, do I have any money to spend? And, they're making sure that their bills are paid and things like this. But there's so many other aspects to finances and, a household's financial, health than just the bank balance.
Financial Literacy Month, how important is it to educate people about not just what's in their bank account or if they make enough room in their credit card so they can go out for the weekend?
Mm-hmm. I think it's really, really important. And, it's just a great building spot. And I think the one thing that we want to talk about, and obviously through the show, how can we keep the, Financial Literacy Month going throughout the year? Canadians are just so indebted, Dan. We're at the highest level of indebtedness ever in Canada. And compared to other developed countries, we have the highest debt-to-income ratio. In Canada, we're at about 180% of annual income to indebtedness, which is really much higher than our counterpart in the U.S. We always, maybe frown upon what's going on in the U.S. and, their interest rates are much higher than ours. But when we're looking at, inflation and we're looking at even the Canadian dollar and we look at indebtedness, Canada, we're not in a really great spot right now. And it concerns me as a consumer, but it also concerns me as someone who works in the financial industry. We want to make sure that consumers are going to be secure and, in a good product and that they're going to, really have the best possible financing for their situation. We want to make sure that happens. And when things change in the economy, like inflation and interest rates, obviously that can have a big impact.
And we talk about interest rates a lot, and a lot of the focus is on that key overnight rate, that the Bank of Canada rate. But that's not the only sort of number that we should be looking at, right?
Definitely. And Canada has lowered the key overnight rate a lot more than the U.S. has lowered it. So I think that's really important. And the one thing that I'm watching right now, and I'm not an economist, but we'll call me a barstool economist. We're here obviously giving my commentary and my opinion. The Canadian dollar right now is very, very low. And that's going to impact consumers more than they think. I think when you think about the Canadian dollar being low, you're like, well, I'm not going to the US anytime soon. I'm not going to be traveling. I'm not going to be impacted. But we need to remember that things that we're buying, a lot of these things are potentially coming from the US, and that can make a big difference as well. And, the other thing that I'm really watching a lot is the tariffs, because that's going to have a big impact going into 2025. And inflation is the next thing. Our inflation has been edging up a little bit. We're still at this 2% mark, so we're still in pretty good shape. But when we're looking at the Canadian dollar and we're looking at even GDP and what's going on in inflation, this is going to impact what's going to happen with the Bank of Canada going into 2025.
Lots of things to unpackage there. The dollar impact, we saw an immediate 1 cent drop on that tweet from President-elect Donald Trump earlier this week. In your world, I mean, we're buying houses in Canada, and the dollar shouldn't impact us, but that's not the case, because if somebody's putting in new construction or those kind of things, everything's, it seems, works in American dollars these days, and it impacts the housing market and the mortgage world.
Well, they're the biggest economy, and for us, we're their biggest trade partner. The trade that we're doing between the U.S. is as much as China and Europe put together, and we think that Canada is just so small, but it is a big impact, and our economies are not tied one-to-one, Dan. But there are a lot of ties that are going to impact us here on Canadian soil. So it's something we certainly need to watch. I'm concerned, and it's something that we're going to continue to monitor, obviously, throughout the year. The Bank of Canada meets 8 times a year, and there is another meeting here before the end of the year. So we're kind of cautiously optimistic that we're going to still see a reduction here on December 11th.
And you and I talked about this on the earlier edition of Mortgage 101 this past month, and you were optimistic about it. Has that changed a little bit with the political waters changing?
Well, I think it certainly. I have a lot more questions, and I think what's going on in the U.S. and with the president-elect, I'm less certain on as deep of cuts as I was. And I think we're really going to have to watch on what the Fed does in the U.S. We don't move one-to-one. I've said this, but we need, they basically need double the amount of cuts to have the same impact as like a 25 basis point cut would have with us. So if we reduce by 25 bips, they need 50 bips to have the same impact. It's just the way that their economy it's just much, much larger than ours. But the one thing that we also need to be cognizant of, their interest rates are much, much higher than ours, and their economy is in a much better condition overall than ours is.
In Nova Scotia, Clinton, we just had an election on Tuesday. One of the big promises made by Tim Houston on the campaign trail is in April, he intends to take a 1 percentage point off of HST. In your world, in the mortgage world, what does that mean?
I think for new construction properties, it can certainly make a difference. I think to the average consumer, maybe from buying a home, not a huge impact. My real question is going to be if we're reducing the tax and we're putting more money into the pockets of Canadians, and Nova Scotians specifically, does that mean that we're going to go out and now spend that other 1% somewhere else and drive up inflation? I don't know. 1%, I'm not sure it's really going to move the needle that much. If we're looking even at, the percentage of decrease, that's less than a 10% decrease in the overall taxation. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. For me, I think it's a little bit more of the optics. But we are very heavily taxed here. It's not just sales tax. From income tax to property tax, we're taxed really in every aspect of our life. And I think any reduction in tax overall is going to be good. Our economy here in Nova Scotia, I think, is quite strong compared to some other provinces. We've done very well. I think our biggest challenge right now, at least from where I sit every day, is really around housing. We're seeing these same stories across the country, but I think that we are really disadvantaged here because we were not doing the construction. So we need to continue doing more and more. Let
me ask you that question. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. During the election campaign, some of the promises were being made by the Liberals and the NDP, building 8,000, 80,000 houses. What's the market like right now, and particularly with new home construction, Clinton? Is it growing? Is it difficult to get started because of all of the pressures, labor shortages, and those kind of things?
I think it's very challenging. I think new home construction is tough, but we need all kinds of units across the board. I did read an article this morning on allnofascotia.com, and one of the big landlords here in Halifax has said that the higher end rental properties actually has slowed. So they have some vacancy, and the average rental price for a 2-bedroom has actually decreased. So, I think in a rental perspective, maybe we are getting into more of a balanced market. Dan, 2 years ago, you couldn't even find an apartment to rent. It doesn't matter what the price was.
And when you did, there was 10 people lined up for it.
And we certainly have had a lot of construction here, and there's going to be a lot of new units come online in 2025. We're looking at the cranes in the sky. Even outside of the studio, there's apartments that are being built all around here on the peninsula. So I think from a rental perspective, at least in the downtown Halifax core, it's going to be a little bit more balanced, I think, going into 2025. I think still from a purchase perspective, there's not enough units to buy, and there's more demand in the market. So, we're still in a seller's market for sure.
And what is the market like, Clinton? Like for not just necessarily new homes, but existing homes?
Much busier than last year this time,
right.
I will say. And I think that we're going to project, and I'll go out on a limb here, I think we're going to see about a 5% increase in purchase price next year. And I think we're going to see at least a 5% increase in activity. I am projecting that it's going to be very busy in terms of real estate. From a mortgage lending perspective, I think it's going to be our best year ever. Part of the reason being is 60% of mortgages are coming up for renewal in the next 2 years.
Right.
So our listeners, there's a lot of them. Chances are your mortgage is going to be renewing. So I think that's going to be really important for you to obviously continue to stay tuned to our show. We're going to talk more about that. And we want to make sure everyone's protected. Financial Literacy Month overall, we want to talk about, income, assets, and credit, and how is that going to impact you?
Why a 5% increase in purchase price? Is that just like would be
because
inflation?
I think there's more demand in the
Yeah.
market from a purchase perspective than there is supply. So I think the more and more supply that comes in, I think that will start eating up some of that demand. But it's going to be years before I think we have enough new units built to kind of eat up the demand for buyers here.
So the concern of the pandemic, when people were buying houses $200,000 and $300,000 and $400,000 above asking, and then the worry is that, when the market kind of corrects itself, there was going to be a decrease in property value. That's not happening.
We have not seen this here.
Really?
We've not seen it like what's happened in Ontario and BC. Those markets have been very negatively impacted, specifically because of the interest rates. That's what slowed their marketplace. I think there was still the demand, but people couldn't qualify.
Right.
Here, people can certainly qualify, and that price point around the average of the 400 to 600,000 is very, very busy. I think the 700,000 plus, that was slower, but we're starting to see more activity in that piece of the market as well.
You're listening to a very special edition of Mortgage 101. He's Clinton Wilkins. It's Financial Literacy Month. We're on for the next 45 minutes to discuss mortgages, to discuss ways to protect yourself, to maybe educate you a little bit more on financial literacy. And we're going to take our first break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. You may not know, but November is Financial Literacy Month, and it's an opportunity for us to talk about things that we don't normally sit around and talk about. You don't see it's U.S. Thanksgiving today, and I'll bet you that many people are getting around their dinner tables today, and they're talking anything but about what the mortgage rates are like, or how much debt they have, or anything else. I'm sure it might divulge into politics or something like that, but it certainly won't be talking about ways that you can better protect yourself moving forward, so that you're in a good financial shape as we head through the Christmas season and into 2025 and to points onwards. You were listening earlier before the break to Clinton Wilkins from Team Clinton. He's, of course, our host of Mortgage 101, and every year during Financial Literacy Month, we do this special live edition of Mortgage 101. And don't forget, coming up after the news here at the bottom of the hour, Clinton's going to open up Vanessa's going to open up the telephone lines, but Clinton's going to take your questions. So if you have a question about financial literacy, perhaps about some of the things that we've discussed or are going to discuss, here's a great opportunity for you to get some free advice on a Thursday as we head into the latter half of Financial Literacy Month. During the break, we are joined now by a very special guest. I'm very pleased to welcome into the studio Mario Cuccier, from the head of creditor insurance from Manulife. Mario, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I guess everybody's heard Manulife. It's a pretty mammoth company. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you do.
Manulife itself is a Canadian-based company. It was founded by one of the former premiers of Canada, John A. Macdonald, about 150 years ago. Manulife operates in many different spectrums in the financial services industry, working with independent advisors and mortgage brokers across the country on the wealth management side, on the creditor insurance, individual insurance side, and on the banking side as well. We pride ourselves in helping customers get better on their quest to financial freedom as fast as possible with the best advice-driven solutions that are available in the market. At any given point in their financial life, 1 out of 4 Canadian consumers is going to have a Manulife product in their book.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's a fairly significant size. The overall global strategy of Manulife right now is to win back and be the undisputed market leader in the Canadian segment. All the efforts are being made this year to make sure that we go back on the marketplace, talk to as many Canadian consumers as possible. And Clinton and yourself were talking about this earlier. And I mean, there's a lot of uncertainties in the market right now. And now more than ever, Canadian consumers are looking for sound financial advice. They're not looking for financial institutions to try to cross-sell products, but for them to give them the best advice-driven value solution for them. And Manulife prides itself in partnering with the best in the industry, like Clinton, in that quest for getting the financial freedom to customers.
Mario, in your day-to-day dealing with creditor insurance, how many people avoid insurance? And the reason why I ask that is I hear it all the time. Oh, gee, that premium's really expensive, and do I really need insurance?
Yeah.
Do you need insurance?
Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, insurance is the backbone of the estates that you're looking to build. When you acquire property or when you make some large substantial investment, you're looking to get in a better financial position, not only for yourself, but your family and your kids eventually, and the loved ones surrounding you. So you want to make sure that you protect what you've worked so hard in building. The rule of thumb for insurance needs is you should have at least 7 times your income as insurance protections for the future. So not just to secure your assets, but actually being able to maintain the lifestyle if, God forbid, there was a life event that was to happen to you. So insurance is absolutely fundamental. Whenever you purchase a property, you have to get casualty insurance for the property. If you drive a car, it is the law to actually have insurance on your car. We feel strongly about the fact that creditor and protection and the adequate protection for consumer is just as equally important to make sure that if you're facing a life situation, it doesn't upside down and upset your family as well as yourself.
I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I can tell you I've had so many consumers reach out to me and even estates reach out to me to find out, did this person take insurance? And, I've had to be sometimes the bad news bearer to say, what I offered to them, because we offer it to everybody, but they chose to waive it. So many Canadians are just underinsured. And I would say the bulk of Canadians there's some people who just fundamentally don't believe in insurance. But yes, Mario hit a good point. We need insurance on our car and we need insurance on our home. Why are we not, really thinking it's important to have insurance to protect our financial, estate? And it could be when you're living. For us, I think disability is just so important. But also the life component. There's so many people that I see in the office, Dan, that, they might be in to see me for, a purchase. And I think we need both incomes to make this work for you to afford this home. If something happens to one of you, you really will have no choice but to sell it. You can't afford this on your own. And, for those ones, obviously I'm trying to have the best conversations I can. And I know that they need even more insurance than, I'm even talking to them about. But some people are just so adverse to it. And sometimes I think you hit a good point. It's around the payment. But in the grand scheme of it, the payment's very low. It's a couple coffees a month in a lot of cases. Here in Nova Scotia, our mortgages are pretty small. Like our average mortgage that we do is about $360,000. But I think to myself, in our housing situation, if something happens to one of you, you'll have no choice but to sell the property. And then where are you going? That's the big thing.
Right. And it's not easy as it once was. If if you come across that situation, say, well, I got to sell my house, and
I'll just go rent an apartment or something.
Well, they're not there anymore, right?
And they're very, very expensive. Like, on our first segment, we said that, the average 2-bedroom apartment, something about $2,500 a month here in Halifax.
Right.
That's a lot of cash, and you can certainly own a home for less than renting. I think that's really important. The one question that I really had for Mario, do you have any statistics around, percentage of Canadians that are underinsured?
Yeah. That's a great question. So every year there's a survey that's being done by an association that's really involved in the mortgage industry, and so they separate into 3 groups of income, the percentage of insured, and for the lower 2 groups, it's actually as much as 83% of the people that are underinsured, and just to further expand on the point you were just making a few seconds ago, when they're saying, insurance is too expensive, but when you look at the payment shock and the expenses that are surrounding a life situation where you're going to have to end up selling your property, whether it's the moving stuff and, the coverage for the reinsurance, taking care of all the bills and all that kind of stuff, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's just, safer to just be insured on the proper pace before, as opposed to have to face those expenses before later on. There's a saying in independent advice, which is when is the best time to get insurance? And it's actually when you don't need it. It's
right.
2 years ago. Just the same way you need to start to invest as much as possible when you're younger. Premiums are sometimes can be super cheap, like Clinton was saying. And the younger you start with these premiums, and some of the products, the creditor insurance, you can actually carry the same premium throughout the life of your mortgage. So if you were to get, coverage when you're 35 years old, the average cost for $100,000 coverage is anywhere between $4 to $15. You could actually carry the same premium throughout your mortgage. So for 25 years, you'd still be having the premium that you took when you took the premium in the first, the insurance, in the first place.
Mario, what product do you recommend to people that they don't likely have? We all have, as we mentioned, it's the law. We all have car insurance. We all have house insurance. For the most part, my experience, property managers are now demanding tenant insurance. But what product do you recommend that we just don't have?
So that's a great question again. The first thing to do is to talk to your advisor, to your mortgage broker, because they will be able to address your situation much better. So they'll have the conversation with you with respect to, cash flow, needs, what's happening, what's the plan in the future. So if you have a good, sound conversation with a professional like Clinton, you'll be able to assess whatever insurance you need. I would be of the opinion that you need to have both creditor insurance and life insurance because they don't serve the same purpose. Life insurance is or disability for that matter, is to be able to maintain the lifestyle that you've been establishing with your family, working so hard in establishing it. Whereas life insurance is to make sure that, again, God forbid, if something was to happen to you and you were to pass on, your family will be supported for the next decade, or they wouldn't have to change their lifestyle that you work so hard to be able to accustom to it. So creditor insurance, super important. Life insurance is super important. And I think you started by the segment by saying, people are saying it's too expensive. I think it's the lack of understanding and the lack of knowledge that's causing that perception that insurance can be too expensive. Like Clinton was saying, and in many cases, it can be just a couple coffees a month. So at least, if you're not certain, don't take for granted that this is going to be expensive. Have the conversation with your mortgage broker. And if they don't have all the right answers, they'll be able to help you and direct you with the proper individuals to help you.
We're going to stop and take a break. We have to update everybody with the news, but the show will continue on the other side of it. Mario's going to stick around for the next segment. Clinton will be here. We're going to open up the telephone lines. If you have a question of either of these two gentlemen, a perfect opportunity to get some free advice on a Thursday. You're listening to a special Mortgage 101 edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in a minute. All right, welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show, a very special edition of Mortgage 101, the live edition of Mortgage 101. In the studio with me, of course, our mortgage guru and the host of Mortgage 101. That's Clinton Wilkins. And we're also very, very happy to have in the studio with us today the head of creditor insurance with Manulife, Mario Cucce, is here. And the telephone lines are open. If you all have a question, these two gentlemen are really plugged into what's going on out there. So this is a good opportunity to get it asked. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000.
You know what? Financial Literacy Month, I think, is just so important, Dan. And, we want to keep it going all year long. I think one of the best things that we do here is really break down some of these barriers. I think at home, I think people need to open up their mail, know what their indebtedness is, talk about their income, what's going on with your assets. The asset is not just the home. What's going on with your RSP and your TFSA. And, if you're looking to buy a home, maybe a first home savings account. These things are very, very important. And I think sometimes people ostrich and they put their, head in the sand. They don't want to talk to their spouse or their partner, about what's going on in their financial household. And I hope tonight at dinner, we'll have some of these conversations happen. I think probably even when we started doing the show 6 years ago, it was really taboo to talk about things like your credit and your credit score and, what's going on with your personal finances. But I think we're starting to break down some of those barriers for sure. I do have a couple more questions for Mario while we're waiting to get some calls, so feel free to call the studio. We'd love to answer some questions live on the air about mortgage lending or Manulife insurance, whatever. But one of the questions that I have for Mario, and this is really one question that my clients ask me or comments that my clients ask me every day, is when we do a mortgage, we offer every single consumer Manulife MVP coverage, which we offer life and we offer disability insurance. I believe in insurance just because obviously me having 7,000 clients, I've seen the horror stories, and Mario hit on a really good point. It's always better to get it the younger you are, and it's you want to get insurance when you don't need the insurance. Some of the pushback that I get is, I'm going to go get whole life. I'm going to go get a term policy. I have enough coverage at work. And the one thing that I think to myself, I'm like, okay, intentions are great, but what happens if you walk out of my office and, we're downtown, we're in downtown Halifax and we're in downtown Dartmouth. You can walk out of my office and get hit by a car. The way that I think about this is I want to make sure they're covered getting out the door. And I just know that they don't have enough coverage. Mario, what would you say to that? I have enough coverage at work, or I'm going to go get the coverage. That's all fine and dandy, but it's a hard one sometimes to talk to consumers about why they need it.
So there's a lot of information and a lot of statements in what you just said. I've got coverage at work. You got to appreciate the purpose of the coverage you got. Mm-hmm. So the coverage at work is usually based on financial underwriting. So depending on the situation and whatever coverage you get 1 or 2 times your salary. So let's just assume,
that's enough to put somebody in the ground, really.
Well, absolutely. And it's usually going to be available for 60 to 70% of your income, of your gross income. So let's just assume you currently use that income for the payment of your mortgage, but also for the amenities, the services, the going to the restaurant on a Friday night. Halifax has so many great restaurants for the kids' entertainment, for the kids' sports and ballet lessons and everything. So what happens if today you just qualify with the mortgage because you have a great mortgage specialist, you were able to get the best solution out there available, but it was probably difficult just to make sure that the debt ratio was to the maximum. So tomorrow morning, you're facing a situation, you're out of work for a little while, and you have to work off 70% of the income you used to have before. Mm-hmm. So what's your game plan to be able to recover that, or are you going to put yourself into a lot more trouble? The second thing you want to see is do you want this money that you're receiving from the work to be going towards paying off your mortgage? Or do you want it to go off to make sure that your family maintains the same lifestyle? So they don't serve the same purpose. And I was reading an article about 2 or 3 weeks ago about, the life cycle. Back in the days, our parents used to say 25, 30 years in their current career. Now, right now, I think with the new Generation Z, it's the average time on employment is going to be 6.7 years.
Wow.
So what do you know if in 2 years from now you change your employment? Are you going to get the same benefits? Do you want to waive off the risk of making sure that you didn't get the proper coverage when you got your mortgage in the first place? And save that $30 a month? Is it really worth it? Do you want to make the rest of your life decision based on the fact that you did or did not get mortgage coverage when it was time to get that? I know it sounds alarmistic, but it's a trivial question that, the best time to do it is actually when you acquire this property, so you set yourself up for success in the future. People would get whole life, would get term life. You were talking about universal life. Those are all great products, and absolutely, I encourage people to get those type of products early in the life. But they don't serve the same purpose. Often people confuse liabilities with assets, and they're two different stuff that you have to take care in life. Liabilities are just as important, because if your liabilities grow up, in your first segment you were talking about the debt to income in Canada, which is one of the highest of the G7. Now, if you don't take care of your liabilities the proper way, that's going to have a significant impact on your assets. So you work just as equally hard on getting your assets through. You got to make sure that you get the proper coverage. So I would recommend, best of both worlds. You're 30 years old. You should get both life coverage and creditor insurance in order to be set up for success.
I've seen so many people in the office, and sometimes we see people that, the credit's not that great and they've had a major life incident. There's been a death in the family, there's been a disability, and the finances just go, that's the last thing you're thinking about. And that's one thing that you really don't, you're not as focused on. I think sometimes when we think about insurance, we're thinking about life insurance. But the disability, I think, is as equally important, if not more important, than the life insurance. The disability is really that living benefit. And there's so many people that their finances would be in better shape today if they had the proper disability. People are like, well, I have some coverage at work. Well, it's not 100% of your coverage. Just think, Todd's off right now. It does happen. You're not planning on being off work. You just think
it happens in a
be
moment's notice, right? It doesn't it's not like you can see it's coming and you're like, you can plan for it. You go to work one day, the next day you don't. And then can you live on 60 or 70% of your income?
And one thing that people oversee is actually the coverage you get for disability at work is what we call in the industry a financial underwriting. So basically what they're going to be doing. So if you're self-employed, the only maximum disability coverage you can get from a regular policy is actually the average of your 2 years' income. So if you declared $50,000 last year, $40,000 this year, your policy can only be for an income of $45,000. A creditor insurance disability, like Manulife MPP, is not financial underwriting. So it's equal to the mortgage payment. So if your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, irrespective of what your income is, you'll be covered for the $2,000 a month.
And that money, that goes to the consumer, correct? Or does that go directly to the financial institution?
So the disability will go to the consumer.
Got it.
The consumer to make the payment. And it's the disability one is tax-free.
Wow.
So that doesn't go towards your income stream at the end of the year.
So in theory, if someone has some disability through work, and let's say they're getting 50, 60, 70% of their income, and they have disability coverage through Manulife MPP, essentially they're going to be made whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
We do have a couple questions coming in here.
And before we get to that, Clay, we got one on the line here.
Okay, well, let's go right ahead.
Bradley's been holding it. I don't want him to wait too long. Bradley, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good. Your question, please.
I'm looking at buying land in Nova Scotia, but they said it's near a flood risk. Would I have to purchase the land in whole? Like, I wouldn't be able to get a loan for that, would I?
You know what? I think that's a tough one. We don't do land loans in our office specifically. We typically will refer people to a local credit union. They're typically one of the more aggressive lenders to do land financing. If it is in a flood zone, that might be a concern. I think anytime that there's any environmental issues, that can be a tough one. But I would definitely seek the advice from someone from a credit union specifically for a land loan. They're really going to be the experts, and they can let you know what's doable, what's not doable. Typically, from a land loan perspective, most lenders only want to lend you a maximum of 50% or maybe 65% of that land. And typically, the interest rate on a land loan is going to be higher than you can get on a traditional mortgage. But the first stop that I would do is I would check the advice of a credit union. And if you need a contact, you can certainly reach out to us and we can pass that along for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Bradley. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. I've got another email question here, Clinton.
Okay, go ahead.
It says, I'm unable to call. Hope you can ask Clinton two questions. One, is LTD considered income? And two, and I'm not familiar with the term, should I pay off my HELOC, HELOC, when I renew my mortgage?
Both really, really good questions. LTD is typically income. And again, I'm not an insurance person. I'm just going to just give it the overarching answer, and I can throw to Mario as well. Long-term disability is typically, I think, a taxable situation, depending on what the situation is. There are some insurers like Veterans Affairs. They do have products that are specifically LTD, and they have other products that may be replacement income. Some are taxable, some are not taxable. So I think it would be dependent on that consumer specific situation. But I think by and large, LTD is taxable. But I'll let Mario comment.
Yeah, that's correct. And the good situation with that is to contact your local representative and just to make sure that you assess your proper situation. There's so many regimes that are available out there that it would be hard to comment on one specific one. So the best thing is to contact your local rep about this.
That sounds great. And then the second question was, should I pay off my HELOC at renewal? Love this question. And we actually do this every single day. It's something that I'm super passionate about. There's so many consumers out there that have an RBC Home Line Plan, a Manulife One, a Scotiabank Step.
What's a HELOC?
It's a home equity line of credit.
Got it.
And very, very popular product. I think they probably started in popularity around in the 1990s, but there's really been a reassurance or a really acceleration of people wanting to get HELOCs because there's so much equity in consumers' properties. I think it's a great fallback plan. I don't think it's a forever plan, though. So when you're coming up for renewal, and if you do have a balance on your HELOC, I think it's a great time to restructure that debt. I really believe in putting any HELOC balance that's going to be long-term debt into the mortgage, because then we can amortize it at a much lower rate. Typically on a HELOC, you're going to be anywhere from prime to prime plus a half to prime plus one. But if we can get that into a mortgage, you're going to be at prime minus, or if we take a fixed rate, you're going to get a rate in that 4% range, where a HELOC right now, we're talking most of them are going to be 6+. So I really believe in combining the HELOC with the mortgage, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get rid of the HELOC. Maybe we combine the mortgage together and give you a new HELOC, maybe with a lower limit, or depending on what your property value is, we're increasing a lot of global limits for consumers right now, just because, especially if you bought a house, in early 2020 or before, you have a lot of equity in your home. Great question.
Going to stop and take another break. This is a special Mortgage 101 edition of the Todd Veinotte Show for the next 15 minutes. If you have a question, 902-405-6000 is the number. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back to this very special edition, live edition of Mortgage 101. He is Clinton Wilkins, of course, the host of Mortgage 101 that you can hear monthly here on the radio station. You can catch it anytime you want if you log onto our website, halifax.citynews.ca, and you go to the listen file. All of the back catalog is there. You can listen to that as well. Also in the studio with us from Manulife is Mario Cucce, and we're going to go to the phone lines here because we're going to run out of time if we don't. And we welcome Heather to the program. Heather, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Your question, please.
My question is about risk insurance. We were thinking about doing an addition to our house, and someone mentioned risk insurance.
I think that would be insurance that you would need to talk to your home insurance broker about. I believe that would be around the construction, which typically when you're building a new home, you get a different type of insurance than you would once the home is complete and you're living in it. So I would refer you out to your home insurance broker, and they can talk to you about that one. That one would be outside of the scope that we would do.
Oh, okay. And it's just that, do you know if it's because if you're having an addition, is that super expensive?
I think the risk insurance is a lot more expensive than your home insurance. I personally built a couple houses in my day, and that insurance is more expensive because the risk is higher. So basically, they're taking into account, your house could be opened up. There could be, issues, obviously, with the contractor. People could be getting hurt. The house may not be as secure as it normally would be. And a lot of times when you're getting an addition put on, the house becomes vacant. So I think that's the insurance that they're talking about. And if you have a mortgage on your property, you have to have home insurance. That's one of the big things when you have a mortgage. You have to maintain that insurance. And your current insurance provider may not continue to insure you during the construction. But again, I'm not licensed to talk about insurance. I would recommend you talking to your home insurance broker, and they will be able to give you that advice on the best way to move forward in your situation.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of complicated. There's no mortgage. The house has been paid for years, and someone is still living in it while the construction is going on.
Okay, that's good.
They would take into all of those accounts. Those things
Yeah,
into account.
and I think in your situation, you want to make sure you're protected, because if you own your house free and clear, you don't want to be in a situation where something happens and then you need to get maybe some higher cost financing just to get yourself out of the situation. So talk to your home insurance broker before you start any work. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, and one of the last questions I'll ask you too is that when you get the construction people to do it, they're insured as well.
That's right. Yeah, their insurance will be separate from your insurance. So you want to make sure that your structure, your asset is protected, and that's from your insurance broker. You're going to want to talk to them directly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Heather. 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Paul to the program. Paul, how are you?
Pretty good, thank you.
Your question, please.
Just a quick question. I saw a program years ago, probably back around 2012, 2014, and it was on Marketplace about mortgage insurance through banks. And basically, it started out the program with like 100 people on the dance floor, and then as they brought up different scenarios, people had to leave the dance floor, and at the end of it, it was only like one or two people that would have been covered. Right?
Yep. I saw that. I saw that one too. I think it was on CBC Marketplace, and they specifically were referencing the insurance that's being offered at the branch level. So I think they were bringing in TD Bank, potentially Royal Bank, CIBC, and Scotiabank, and they were talking about their sales practices around that creditor insurance. I'm going to throw this one to Mario because he can really speak to what the differences are between the Manulife product and what would be sold in the bank level, at the branch level, because I know that one is very, very different from this Manulife product. So I'll throw to Mario to answer this one.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Paul. For starters, this is a conversation you should be having with your mortgage broker whenever you have the conversation about your mortgage, and they're talking about that. So usually what you will be seeing in financial institution is just what they call a rider program, which is basically a simple program that's only associated to your mortgage with that specific financial institution. It doesn't have pre-funding underwriting. So basically they'll tell you, you get your mortgage, you pay extra so-and-so for your creditor insurance. You get the creditor insurance as long as you have your mortgage with that specific financial institution. When comes time to make a claim about that specific mortgage with that specific financial institution, then they will do the underwriting. So they'll look at your situation, what caused the situation, did you have any pre-existing medical condition. So those programs are typically a bit cheaper than the good coverage that you would get from an independent creditor insurance like Manulife. There's a couple other ones in the industry, but Manulife usually stands out for itself. And the coverage you get with the Manulife product, for example, is you're able to port that coverage. The coverage will stay with you as long as you're a homeowner. So if you were to move property, if you were to refinance your property, you'll still be able to keep that coverage. And the underwriting is being done upfront. So there's no down surprises in 2 years or 3 years down the road. Whenever you're receiving the response that you've been authorized and approved for coverage up to a certain amount, that coverage is available. And unless, some clients sometimes forget or are not forefront about their medical conditions, but if you are, whenever you get the approval from the independent insurers, you're going to get coverage for the life of your mortgage. So you're good to go. So these products are self-standing on themselves. They're not part of the financial institution to which you deal with. And it makes the world of difference because the programs are designed for you, with you, and with the help of your mortgage professional, your mortgage broker. You're able to get the best coverage and the most adequate coverage for you. Hope that answers your question.
And I've seen this situation all the time, Paul. The challenge is that sometimes it also ties people to that financial institution because they think that coverage is the only coverage that they're going to get if something changes with their health. With ours, we move the mortgage, the Manulife is going to come with you. So it's really so good because even like the age where someone's going to get it today for refinancing, if we're buying, if something's changing with someone's health and you wouldn't normally get insurance, we can keep this Manulife insurance in place where that's not necessarily possible with these products at the bank. So it's really, we're not comparing apples to apples in this situation specifically.
Clinton, we only got about a minute left. If you want to wrap up, this is your chance.
Well, this was really an amazing show.
Right.
November really is the cherry on top for us. It's just one of the most important months. is talking about financial literacy, and we're really in the advice business, and we believe the best advice comes from an unbiased mortgage professional. And I'm so happy that we have such a great partnership here with the radio station 95.7 that we're able to talk to consumers, share information, break down some of these barriers. I really, really appreciate it. When we first started doing this show about 6 years ago, we thought we were going to do one season on the weekend, and we talked about everything that we would talk about from mortgage lending. But certainly a lot has changed over the years, and there's a lot in the news and in the media about mortgage lending and real estate, and we're going to continue the conversation into 2025. We're going to take a break in December. We're not going to have our normal show, and we'll be back in January, and we're going to talk about Mary Detmus. As we know, Canadians are just so indebted, and we're going to talk about what the best way to move through 2025 is going to be. And really, if you need any more information, and if you have any questions specifically for us, you can always check us out online at teamclinton.ca/radio. Hundreds and hundreds of blog posts on there, and you can see clips of our show. We're going to be pushing those out over the next couple weeks. So if you missed any of the show, you can certainly see it online.
He brought cameras in here.
Very, very soon.
He brought cameras
in
here.
The radio guy being
right?
on the video is
I have the
fun.
perfect face for radio, they tell me. Anyway, Clinton, I appreciate you coming in. Mario, nice to meet you, and thank you
Thanks,
for
Dan.
your time. We're going to stop down and take a break. When we come back, first Blake's going to update us on what's going on in the news. When we come back, it's time for the open hour. Lots to talk about there. The lines are open. 902-405-6000. We're back in minutes.
Sometimes I'm right and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song.
All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. That was an hour. Lots of really great information in there. And I'm glad that Clinton was able to spend some time with us and bring us up to speed on that important subject. And it always, and it shouldn't, but it always surprises me to hear that Canada has if not one of the highest debt to income ratios in the entire G7. We are a bunch of people in debt, aren't we? What did he say? 180%? It's wow. We're paying a lot of interest payments these days. Anyway, time for the open hour. This is your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. There's an awful lot to talk about out there today. Of course, there was the big meeting yesterday between the Prime Minister and the Deputy PM and the Premiers. Kind of two different takes on how that all went. The government says, oh, no, we're unified. We're Team Canada, go. Team Canada, go. And some of the other premiers are like, well, yeah, okay, we need that approach, but we're going to do some things on our own. And I'm looking at Alberta, who says that they're going to pursue a sort of a side deal with energy with regards to the tariff and Donald Trump. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that as well. Also, lots to talk about with regards to the provincial election. That's done and will be dusted here today as we get forward and move forward to see the official results. We haven't got an official number yet, and I'm sure we're going to get that later today, but I'm seeing 44% a lot. 44% voter turnout. That and I stand to be corrected if the numbers are different, but I saw that bantered around yesterday an awful lot. And if that is the case, even if it's a little bit more, if it's at 50, our electoral processes in our part of the world are suffering badly, very badly. So my question to you today is this, and I know we've talked about it before, but I maybe was naively holding out hope that we would see a little bit of an improvement in this vote on Tuesday for the provincial election. Now, I know there wasn't a lot of anger, and I know there wasn't a lot of really need for this election other than to give the Premier a stronger mandate in the province and a stronger mandate to deal with Ottawa. But if 44 is the number, and what was the municipal election was 38? How do we fix this? Voter apathy, we talk about it all the time. We talk about, it's, if you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain. Well, we know that isn't the case. How do we fix it? Yesterday we touched on proportional representation, which would base some things off of popular vote. We also talked a little bit about, and I think we had an email on it yesterday, about mandatory voting. Is that the way? Do we follow the Australian method, where if you don't vote, you're subject to a fine? Is that the way that we force people to go and mark a ballot instead of having them do it on their own? Do we need to change the way that we vote, the method by which we vote? I normally would have said, yeah, we need to put it on the internet. We need to be able to do from our couch, because for whatever reason we can't get off of our backsides and get off our backsides and do it. How do we do it? Municipal election, we were able to, and we didn't. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on this. How do we change the trend? How do we reverse the trend of low voter turnout? Also came across a story very quickly before we go to the phones. The Australian legislature, the government in Australia is passing a law, if they haven't already passed it, that will ban anybody under the age of 16 from social media. Not, parental controls, not, monitored, not, just we'll call it social media light, an outright ban. Anybody under the age of 16. I'm curious your thoughts on that one as well. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let's begin with Rick today. Rick, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Dan. Pretty good. Hope you are, too.
What's on your mind?
Get the day off tomorrow. Just kidding.
Only half a job to do tomorrow, or one job to do tomorrow.
Look, when you get older, you sort of hear a lot of stuff repeated over the years. And ever since I've been old enough to vote, people have been talking after each election about low turnout. And I think it's built into the system. I think that if you have a certain amount of apathy, then you don't vote. And I think that's a good thing because you haven't been paying any attention. Now, the people who vote along party lines every time, that's good too, because that keeps the parties in either power or opposition, and we have a functioning parliamentary democracy. Even in the province, it's a parliament built on the parliamentary system.
It is. Yep.
So I mean, look, I understand why you bring it up, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think there's any solution to it that anyone in the public can give, whether it be proportional representation or any other method. Everything has been tried, and as some famous person said, democracy is a terrible form of government,
right.
And you know the drill.
Yep.
But anyway, we have a parliamentary democracy, and I think that apathy for a proportion of the voting public is built in, and I don't see it as a bad thing because it gives the people who are not apathetic actually a larger proportion of the power when your vote is cast.
Rick, let me ask you this question, and you make some points, and I understand that, but let me ask you this question. If that number is 44, and I don't know if that's going to be the final number or not, but if that's the case, Houston got just over 50%, so for the sake of easy math, we'll say that he had 22% of eligible voters, gave him a supermajority in the legislature. Does that seem fair? I mean, that 22 out of every 10 people were able to give him that much of a majority?
Well, what's unfair about it?
Well, it just feels like that a very small portion of the population are making the decisions for the masses, if that makes any sense.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
It's that small, informed percentage of the population that has been consistently voting in governments for the 50 years that I've been paying attention. So it obviously we just we still have a government elected. It's a majority because face it, the other two were not as popular. And popular governments get elected. They're popular because of usually what the leader says. and we tend to follow what the leader says more than, and I said it's a tendency, more than the individual person, okay? That's why we have a party system. If you look at any other system of government where you have, like in Germany, coalition governments,
Yes.
they're weak. They fall apart at the slightest inkling. Now, we have a coalition government right now in Canada.
We do.
Because Trudeau has a minority government.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about, not having the vote of the people. I mean, the same thing is true about Trudeau. But in this particular case, you see him forming an alliance with the NDP, and when the federal election comes, the voters will speak on whether or not they like that particular association.
Rick, I appreciate your call.
Okay, man, thanks.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. The question on the table today is this. If the number 44% is accurate, and I don't suspect it will go up very much if it doesn't, how do we get people out to vote? 902-405-6000. We're back after the break. Little shout out to a local company here before we move on. Clint Wilkins was in earlier today, and he was doing the Mortgage 101 show live, and that was an informative hour. And if you missed it or you only caught part of it, Vanessa's going to put the show onto our podcast onto our website, and I really would urge you to download it because there's some really great information in there about things I didn't know. I learned a lot, and I think you will. But anyway, the show to the local company is that Clinton brought donuts from Veinotte in, and if those are they're just, all I can say is they're awesome. They are Veinotte. They are yummy. Anyway, I'm gonna have to have a nap now because there may be a calorie or two in that. Anyway, 902-405-6000. What do we do about low voter turnout? Let's welcome Roman to the program. Roman, how are you?
Good, Dan. How are you today?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, on the election, I'm 68 years old, and I've literally voted probably in every election I could since, 18 or what. I made a point of figuring out, okay, I can vote here, I can vote there, and I went and voted early. It's very simple.
Yep.
Now, I have a 25-year-old granddaughter, very smart kid. She's actually in law school. And I bet you she probably didn't even give it a thought that there was even an election. I don't think she's ever voted. I know she didn't vote in the last election. I mean, I can. She goes and does her other stuff and didn't vote in the Halifax election, and she would have probably known there was an American election. But so I don't know what you can do to get kind of younger people engaged. The problem is, for the most part, the issues are for people our age, my age, your age, Todd's age, your listener's age. They're not for 25-year-old kids. Afford to buy a house, they don't see anything that is going to be done for them, and politicians don't cater to them. They don't do anything. So I don't know how you change that because that's always been the system. But I think before, like when I was growing up, when you were growing up, there wasn't the social media, there wasn't all this other stuff out there.
Right.
You probably knew more about an election coming up, and you're more interested in voting. But I honestly don't know how we change the system to get more people to vote. I can't imagine, fining people. That doesn't sound, very democratic. So I honestly don't know how to change it. I think it's pretty sad, but, I honestly don't know what we do about that.
Roman, I appreciate the call, sir.
Bye.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. We didn't have social media when I was growing up, and I very distinctly remember sitting around. It was kind of the way we did things at my house. We ate supper, and then we went in front of the television and watched the 6 o'clock news. And from a very early age, maybe that's why I chose the career that I'm in now. But And when there was an election on, as a family, we would discuss the issues. Like we literally would. We would sit around and talk about it. And, for instance, if the bridge toll came up or the housing situation, my mom and dad and I and my family would discuss the issues. And maybe that's what's lost. And I know they don't teach a lot of, I know that there are some courses and some programs at school, but, the civics part of it is not as high profile in the curriculum now as it maybe once was. And to Roman's point, I don't know what the answer is. I thought it was the voting method and younger people not wanting to go to a poll and mark a ballot with a pencil. But I mean, look at the municipal election. You could vote online there. We have a 38% turnout. I don't know what the answer is. What do you think it is? 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Mark to the program. Mark, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thanks for taking my call. It's attributed to Churchill, Winston Churchill, that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
Yep.
He should know. I mean, he helped save the world, and then he got voted out of power. I think, what it comes down to, like, I'm 44 years old. I did not vote in this last election. That's the first time ever. The older I get, the less inclined I am to vote.
Mark, can I ask you why? Why you didn't vote?
Of course. I did make a sort of attempt. I went down there and I saw like 30, 40 people, and I was like, nah. And I just left. I could have just waited it out. But the reason that I am less inclined is because my vote doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter. My riding goes NDP every single time. The candidate here got 53% of the vote. So, if you know the outcome already, I don't know. What's really the point of doing that, of voting?
Well, I think that, I can understand the difficulty knowing that whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but there's going to come a point when it's not. And I think that many people would have said the very same thing to you 2 weeks ago in Yarmouth, that Zach Churchill was going to win that riding because he's the leader of the Liberal Party, and he lost by 16 votes. So their votes counted.
Fair point. But that's one reason, and then I won't take up too much time.
Sure.
But the other reason is, what has changed? What really has changed? I mean, I've lived here for over 30 years. Now, going back to when I was a kid, and we just cycle red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. We threw in orange once. Mm-hmm. Nothing ever really changes. So that's kind of where I'm at. Proportional representation, I've been a fan of since I found out what that was. In first year university. And I think we need to change our electoral system. And if we do, I think more people will come out and vote.
Mark, I appreciate the call.
Thanks, Dan.
902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Where are we here? Let's go to Carl. Carl, how are you?
Not too bad. How you doing, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Well, about the voter turnout thing there, I've got a radical idea here.
Sure.
What you do is on election day is you lock out everybody's phone until they vote online, and that's the only way they can open up their phone.
Right.
And you have your 4 options there, and one of the options is to spoil your ballot. If you spoil your ballot, then it brings you to a page where you have to explain why you spoiled your ballot. Most people will try to avoid that and just vote for somebody, even if they don't care who it is, and open their phone.
So an uninformed ballot is better than a no ballot at all. Is that where you're kind of getting at? Because the reason why I ask that, Carl, is when people download apps and they download things into their phone, and that big disclaimer that comes up that you're supposed to read, and then you agree or you disagree to it. Most people don't even read it; they hit agree, so they don't even know what's in it. So if they're just going to vote for somebody, is that a true reflection of what the people want? I guess is my question.
Well, I think it is, because they'll look at it, they'll see the 3 names, and even if they just recognize one of the names, at least it's a vote.
Right.
And the other thing is, like, I don't believe in polls. I think polls should be canceled a couple of weeks before the election, and because people just, they see it, they say, okay, he's going to win by a landslide anyway, right. So there's no need of me going out and stuff, and I don't believe in that. Anyway, that's my idea, and I think that would at least you would have 80% or whatever of people voting, and who knows, it may be people who think, that they just weren't going to bother voting at all, and they voted. Right?
Yep. Carl, I appreciate it, sir.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
902-405-6000. Very quickly before we head to the news break here, I got an email from Josh. It reads like this. I think the reason the voter turnout is so horrible, really boils down to the politicians. We seem to have the same person regardless of party, in which nothing really changes when they get into power. I think about the major problems, it boils down to healthcare, housing, transportation, where the party leader's saying, the other cities have streetcars, subway trains, LRT, why don't we have that here? Where the party leader says, healthcare, let's look at alternative, cheaper solutions and provide better and more care. He said, I'm a kinesiologist. For less money than some of my clients' prescriptions, I've gotten them off things like Ozempic and blood pressure medication, yada, yada, yada. I'm running out of time here. So it says, no, they don't. It's all status quo. We need some, and I'm going to insert a word here. I can't say what he had on the radio. I'm going to say some intestinal fortitude in our politicians and get some new ideas to get voters out. And that one is from Josh. The conversation continues on the other side of the news break. Low voter turnout. What's the solution? You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. Welcome back. Low voter turnout. How do we fix it? That's what we're going to spend the next 30 minutes on the program here. 902-405-6000. Very quickly before we go to the phone lines, got an email from Jenna. It says, "Hi Dan, I think we do have a problem with low voter turnout, but I don't think it's always as low as they say it is. I'm not exactly sure what they consider an eligible voter to be. Is it just any NS resident over the age of 18? If that's the case, it probably doesn't take in the points of university students who may be studying in other provinces, perhaps people who work out west and split their time between here and there. Maybe they weren't in the province when the election happened. Also, what about our seniors or adults who are in nursing home, long-term care, hospital stays? Was there an option for them to vote?" And to that point, I can say I think there was. I think that those community polls in some of those places, Jenna, so that the people that are in nursing homes or I don't know about the hospital, but I know the nursing home for sure. Essentially, I don't think we're actually looking at the pie at 100%. That being said, I'm not defending the results. I think people just gave Houston a blank slate to do whatever he wants, and no government should have a free pass without any pushback from opposing views. And that from Jenna. 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Tristan to the program. Tristan, how are you?
Good. How are you, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind?
So I'm 19 years old, right? I'm a young voter coming into this, and I did quite a bit of research on the candidates in my county.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, I didn't even end up going because when you think about it, like one of the previous callers said, my vote doesn't really matter. When you look, like I'm in Sackville-Uniacke, right? So Brad Jones, he won by a considerable amount of votes, right?
Yep.
And for me, I know a lot of my friends that are around me who are also the voting age, they don't see the point because none of the parties support what they want to do, like buying a house and better health care, better working conditions, all those other things that these people can control, like Tim Houston saying that he's going to provide housing and try and tackle that problem. But over the last 3.5 years, we haven't really seen anything from him. So why, as a voter, should I come out and even cast my vote? I'd rather be a spoiled ballot than an uninformed.
And that's a fair point, Tristan, and I hear that a lot. That being said, I go back to my Yarmouth example, right? Where we, the leader of the Liberal Party was running in Yarmouth 2 weeks ago. I would have said that, he's going to win that without a question, and then he lost it by 16 votes. So a lot of people like you decided to actually to vote for somebody and affected change. And I get the dissatisfaction, and I understand the being a young person and feeling like your voice isn't heard, but. Just by, giving up is kind of what they want you to do, right?
No, I don't disagree with that. It just feels like there's not a lot of candidates that are out there voicing our opinions as young people, that things that we want to see change and things that we want to happen just aren't happening, right? And a lot of the parties are focused on seniors and the upper middle class people, and those aren't most young people.
Tristan, I appreciate the call, sir.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000. It's nice to hear from younger voters out there. It's been a consistent problem for many years that the younger demographic feel like their voice isn't being heard. And I don't know what the solution is to that other than to become even more politically active and affect change from within, right? I think I said it during the municipal election. They've been so close together, I don't remember what I said anymore. But I think it was Rick Mercer that originally said it. He said, the way that you can scare the living heck out of politicians is to vote and to vote in numbers, because they base their strategy on a small voter turnout. And I'm going to suggest, and the Premier's welcome to call in and to dispute this, but I'm going to suggest that part of the reason why he decided that it was time to go early outside of the fixed election date legislation that he passed was that he knew that the voter turnout was going to be low, and he knew that he didn't have to have a lot of votes to win each riding. And I think that was part of the strategy. They want us not to vote. And I think a good message to send is to say, no, I see through you. I see what you're doing. And get out and vote. But that's just my opinion. 902-405-6000. Greg, how are you?
How you doing, sir?
Good. What's on your mind?
Good. You know, the one guy was talking about the young people voting, and I can remember when I was young and then coming in to vote, and I never did. But the only time I did vote was in 1980 during when I lived in Quebec City or Montreal for the referendum. Yep. And I voted in that. And my mom said, "I see you have to." But my mom said something to me where everybody said, you may not want to vote, but he said, when you start working and you start paying taxes, then you're going to say, hey, what's going on here? Then you'll take notice. But how are you going to get people to get involved? I mean, young people, like you said, if young people get young enough and try to run for a party, well, you might find out that you might find something. That might be the way to do it. But again, I don't know what else you can do to get people to vote. It's just, it's just not much you can do. I mean, but that's been going on for years, though, Dad.
And it gets worse every time we have a vote. It gets less and less and less, right?
It does. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but you know something. To be fair, I talked to the Premier 2 days before, and he said you've got to vote. You get out and vote. He was telling us, you got to go vote. And he's right, because I wasn't going to vote. But he said, no, you have to. He said, if everybody did that, where would we be?
Right.
And he's right. But again, there's problems. I mean, but again, how are you going to fix it? Well, some people have indicated, well, make voting mandatory. No, that's not a good idea either. But I don't know what else you could do. It's just, it's been going on for years and years and years. And, the voter turnout in the federal is even low. Yep. Provincial. Well, what can you do? I really don't know. I know I do. So that's all I can say.
Greg, I appreciate the call, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000. I will suggest that when the federal election happens, whenever that is, most indications are in the first quarter of next year, I think we're going to see a significant voter turnout. And I think that's just because of the dislike of the current government and the current prime minister. I think when there's a high voter turnout, particularly in a federal election, it's because the electorate wants change. And I think that's what you're going to see in the federal election, whenever that happens. 902-405-6000. Let's welcome John to the program. How are you, John?
Oh, not too bad, Dan. Listen, I hear Scott Bryson's coming back.
That's the rumor anyway. He made a pretty cryptic video supporting a candidate in King South, saying that when he comes back to politics. So, I don't know, maybe he is, maybe he isn't.
Well, he must have thought that people forgot all about that criminal activity when they had the bids in for the destroyers. I forget now how long when he left. Would it be 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, it's been something along those lines.
He left because he wanted to be more time with his family, but they questioned him about them. He had nothing to do with it. He did have something to do with it. So he figured everybody must have forgot about that. But anyway, another thing about the voting. You
Yep.
know what they're going to have to do?
What?
Go back the old-fashioned way and start loading your car up. Then the guy's driving to pick you up. Years ago, my father did drive there one day. He was off on show, and you had. And when I was only young, but I know he brought us some chocolate. And the trunk was full of rum, nylons, and chocolate. and everybody voted in our community. Nobody, as long as they get something out of it, they voted. Yeah.
So bribes is your solution.
Well, I mean, that was a big 50, 60 years ago. Man, was a big election day. Was a big ordeal.
Yep.
But I remember him driving and the fellow lived up on the hill. He was high in the Liberals, and he told the old man not to get any rum out if he had, and then because he was a bootlegger, the rum went back to him. But that's the way it was years ago, and like I said, and pretty well everybody voted in the community but then they stopped that. That's illegal now. Even that guy there giving free buying donuts not too long ago, he got in trouble, didn't he?
Right.
Yeah. Okay then, Dan.
John, have a good one, sir.
Yeah.
902-405-6000. Yeah, I don't think that's the solution. I mean, sometimes the old ways are the right ways, but I don't think that's the solution. Is to open up the trunk and hand out the rum bottles to everybody to make sure that they go vote for you. I think that those days have passed. A couple of emails I want to get to quickly before we take our next break. I got an email from Deborah who said, I asked my dad, who's a lifelong Liberal voter, if he'd like me to take him to vote. He said no. He could not vote Liberal this time, so he refused to vote at all. I think there's quite a spillover from the federal Liberals. People are not happy with the coalition government, and that's what they voted for. That from Deborah. This one from Phil. It says, I am much like a couple of your previous callers. I'm 65 and had to force myself to go out and vote and spoiled my ballot for the first time. From where I sit, the process can't be fixed until politicians are held accountable, which won't happen. When your provincial leader sees no issue with and ignores his own law of setting a fixed election date to suit his agenda, why bother? The entitlement and the audacity of these people and their national counterparts to do whatever they want drives people away. I'm not supposed to be listening at work, so don't say my name. I only said your name's Phil, and there's a lot of Phils out there. Phil, hoping to get you in trouble. One more before we take a break, and this one is from Colin. It says, I would run for the leadership of a provincial Liberal Party, but it costs $32,000 to put your name on the ballot. What young person has that on hand to throw away? The parties are designed to have rich old people running for their leadership, and I don't see myself in them. And that's from Colin, and that's a great point. How do we fix low voter turnout? That's the question on the table. We're going to take another break. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Axe.
All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000 is the number. Vanessa's having way too much fun behind the glass today as she does her job, and I think it might be the sugar high that she had from the donuts that Glenn brought in earlier. But anyway, she's laughing and smiling. That means it's a good day if Vanessa's smiling. I haven't made her mad yet. 902-405-6000 is the number. Let's welcome Ryan to the program. Ryan, how are you?
Good. Where are those donuts from, did you say?
Vandal. They're the best.
And where's that at?
On they've got a location on is it Gottingen or Agricola? And I see that they're opening one in on the waterfront, and they're fantastic.
Okay, yeah, I was already on the peninsula once today, so I guess I'll have to go back tomorrow. Sounds good though.
Yeah, they're awesome.
The election. So I'm gonna echo a couple of things I heard come some of your other callers. I've been on hold for a while, so I'm not just parroting, but and those are the two ideas that I come up with. One. Remove any relationship between the provincial parties and the federal parties. No more Liberal or Conservative or Green or NDP provincial parties. Name something else, no relationships. Because a big part of voting in a provincial election, as we witnessed this past election, seems to be what's happening at the federal level. And there's not enough concern about our own issues. It seems to be a lot of concern about federal issues, not provincial issues. So get rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I would say is ban polls. Just ban them. Just no polling. No reporting on it. You're not allowed on the news feeds. No polling, period.
You know, it's interesting. We were talking about that. I don't mean to cut you off, Ryan, but we were talking about that during the break with my colleagues, and it's, you know, there's an actual law on the books of the part of the Election Act that we can't talk about polls on Election Day because it would influence the vote, but we can talk about them for the other 28 or 29 days when everybody can vote anyway. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Either ban them or let them go, right?
Right to 11:59 the day before. That makes no sense. So I agree. Ban them outright because you've heard it from all the callers.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point. My vote doesn't count. My vote doesn't matter. Yep. And especially this past election, we heard how very early on what the lead that the Conservatives had in the polls was. So there's a lot of people that just figured, well, they're going to win no matter what. What's the point? I'm not voting. That is not helpful.
Yeah, for sure. 100% not helpful.
But getting rid of, and I don't know how you do that, but distancing the provincial parties from the federal parties, I think, is absolutely necessary.
Well, Ryan, I think we're going to have to do some kind of outside-the-box thinking in order to try and reverse this trend, and, you know, I think everything's on the table. Hey, man, I appreciate the call.
Free six-pack if you vote.
902-405-6000. Well, Doug Ford kind of ran on that his first time around, didn't he, where it was going to change the law to a buck a beer, and he took the focus off of all of the issues that Ontario was facing and the subway lines and the big I don't suggest that that's the way to fix things, but outside the box thinking. A couple other emails I want to get to very quickly. I got this one from Jay, who says, time for me, and that's me, as in Dan, to get over my disappointment that the PCs won. I never said I was disappointed. The summer election usually has a lower voter turnout, so with my logic, Houston should have waited. But wouldn't it be better, Jay, if say we had to have a 28-day election, and while we had an American election in there too that distracted everybody, including you, and also Remembrance Day weekend that kind of distracted everybody. So we turned 28 days into 26 days. Tough to get a message out in 26 days. Anyway, appreciate the email. This one says, from Lawrence, says, hey, Dan, I suggest the problem is not that people don't vote. It's that they're not interested in what's going on. I would rather that an uninformed person doesn't vote. Let the election results be determined by the people who are interested and informed. Growing lack of respect for our politicians is a major problem. 902-405-6000. Where are we here? Let's get Jim on. Jim, how are you?
How you doing, Dan?
Hey, Jim. How are you? I'm dirty for a couple days. Hope you're all right.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Listen, this election thing, I'll just be very quick. HRM, the municipal election.
Yep.
We had 360,000 eligible voters, population of roughly 500,000. 123,000 people voted. So what I've concluded after running in those elections all these years is that there's roughly right now 123,000 citizens that really give a shit in HRM. So when you're a candidate and you're out banging on thousands of doors, what they have to do now and expand it into the provincial is say, okay, those under the age of 45 do not have the eligibility to vote. Make that a law. And number two, you can go to extremes and say the only way you're going to get people to vote is do not allow them to vote. Because then they'll have a revolution and they'll want to vote. Because most people just frankly don't give a shit.
They're complacent, right? They're just...
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, I'm putting it more bluntly, but really, the proof is right there. I just read it. 123,000 in a municipal election. So what they should do, and when you go into the provincial elections, the federal elections are usually change elections, so you'll get more people out. But the party system and all that, everybody's calling in and saying their vote is wasted because things never change. Well, here's the solution to that. You pick three leaders. Houston, we'll say for now. I don't know about the other guy, Churchill. He may quit. So the Liberal leader, the NDP leader, and the Green leader. And you put all their names in a drum like you do a lotto each time the 4 years comes around, and you pick out whoever wins. Because everybody's saying it doesn't make a difference.
Fair point, Jim. I appreciate it.
Right? Give him a chance. Okay, bye.
Right. 902-405-6000. Jim unvarnished there. I don't appreciate the language, but I understand his point. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Who can we get to here now? Mike, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you loud and clear, Mike. You're loud and clear. 5 by 5, as they would say.
Right on. First of all, I'm glad Sean didn't call and get your blood pressure all worked up.
Well, we weren't talking about Trump, so we're okay.
This is true. What would you think about a personal tax credit if you vote?
You know,
When you get your ballot.
I got 2 or 3 emails that suggest the very same thing, that you get a tax credit if you vote. You know, again, we have to think outside the box, right?
Yeah, but I agree though that the lower the turnout, I think the more the politicians like it. But I mean, they could give a significant tax credit. You could give a $4,000 or $5,000 tax credit, and it doesn't take that much off what they lose. That would probably only be maybe $40 or $50 come income tax time that the government's going to lose. I think it'd be a great idea, really.
Yeah, and it might motivate people to get out and vote. Mike, I appreciate that.
Have a good day.
You too. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. We're almost out of time. Let's see if we can get one more on. Leonard, you are the last word today. What's on your mind?
Hi, I'm a first-time caller, Dan. I'm glad you had some room for me. I don't see what the problem is at all. Everyone has an opportunity to vote, and if they don't vote, then what they're really saying is that we're ready to accept what the majority has to say. That's a basic freedom of choice, and that's a basic foundation of what our society is about. So I have no problems with people not voting. That in itself is a vote. And so what I don't like would be if people didn't vote and then they wanted to complain about it. That's just not acceptable. So I have no problem with the results and the low turnout. There is no such thing as low turnout. Everyone knows when they're supposed to vote. If they don't vote, that is in itself a single vote.
Leonard, I can't argue with your points.
Well, and that's the way it's been from day one. I mean, we are living in a free country. You have an option to vote. If you feel your vote doesn't matter, well, that's your opinion. But everyone has a chance to vote. Now, my darling wife and I have voted in every election that we've had a chance to, and that's what our right is, and we take that. But people that don't vote just are not exercising that right, and so they have to accept what the rest of the majority say.
Leonard, I appreciate your call, sir.
Thank you.
That's going to do it. I appreciate everybody who took the time out of their day, dial the numbers, and join the conversation. You truly make my day when you do it. I apologize to those that we didn't get to. Open lines again tomorrow, Friday, free for all. Todd will be here. He may have another take on this. You'll have to tune in and find out. We're going to stop down. We're going to get an update on what's going on in the news. And when we come back, it's time for our visit with the vet. Dr. Jeff Goodall will be joining us. If you have a question about Rover, or maybe your cat, or your bird, or your horse, I don't know about horses, but anyway, he probably knows. Here's a good opportunity. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Our visit with the vet is coming up right after the news. Welcome back. It's the Todd Veinotte Show. Happy Thursday afternoon, or as we like to call it around here, Friday Eve. It's almost there. Can you see it? Can you see the end of the work week? Can you see the finish line? Another day and a half to go, and you're there. And we're near the end of the month, so that means it's time for us to welcome back onto the program to help us out a little bit, our good friend and veterinarian, Dr. Jeff Goodall. Dr. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I am well. We're getting close to that time of the year, right? I'm seeing people's Christmas trees up in their windows, and they got the lights on the houses. I guess the first question, at least for me, is: do we have to get our pets ready for the holiday season? And I'm not talking about buying a new jacket.
No, I was going to touch on that. I mean, for the listening audience, it's a good idea to email your veterinarian and get their annual holiday toxicity and other concern handouts. Most clinics put one up. The big thing, I think, is, and I'm just going to come back to something that I have touched on before, it seems more and more, at least from my perspective, and so I'm only the perspective of one plus our two associates, that more clients are talking about anxiety in their pets, especially around any holiday season, whether it's end of school in June and return to school in September, fireworks season, of course, through the summer and fall thunderstorms. But the other thing is, keep in mind that, like, I'll use cats as an example. When company's coming over, if you have a stressed animal, I'm using cats as an example here, try to have a quiet space away from company where the cat can feel safe. Of course, still has access to, some water for sure in a litter box and maybe some cozy blankets. Keep in mind that there are calming remedies. I think I've chatted about Zalkine in the past, calming care by Purina for dogs and cats, which is something you can sprinkle on the food. Zalkine is the same thing. Feel Away, and I can't think of the dog one suddenly, but these are pheromones you can plug in. And then there also are other supplements with L-theanine and tryptophan, which American Thanksgiving, there's going to be a lot of people experiencing that today.
Turkey.
And yeah, exactly. So just keep that in mind. And then, of course, I think most clients by now know that they have to be very careful with xylitol. Oh my gosh, I'm having a moment. The artificial sweetener, I can't think of, starts with X. Anyway, that it's in a lot of different things, including gummies and chocolates, and a little bit of that can go a long way to cause toxicity. And so try to think about the food you're putting out, the treats you're putting out. Some of the decorations, most cat owners know they're going to have to be really careful about that. Of course, ribbon used to be a huge issue. I haven't seen a ribbon ingestion for, I can't remember how long, 20 years anyway. Candles are the other one. See a lot of singed fur at this time of year, singed whiskers. And then, of course, cords, and that's dogs and cats and birds as well. They can be pretty tempting, and if your cat or dog or, a larger parrot bites through the electrical cord, it can cause a burn to the tongue. It's usually not such a severe shock that it affects the heart and the lungs, but that can happen where we get edema or fluid in the lungs. And, of course, in addition to the burn in the mouth, the heart is skipping beats. And so, I think I can finish off on that. One thing I was going to touch on very briefly is just to remind clients, first of all, thank you all for taking care of your pets and listening, and thanks to Rogers and Dan and Vanessa. I know it's American Thanksgiving, but I forgot to do it last time.
Okay.
And last thing, clients, keep in mind that your vet should be talking to you annually about preventive care blood work. I actually was going to talk more about that this time, only because we had a case 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, where the client came in for annual routine exam. Cat looked great, 12 or 13 years old. Convinced them, recommended the values of preventive care blood work because it's not inexpensive. And, veterinary visits are not inexpensive either, which comes back to don't forget to get your pet insurance. And I think you had an insurance person and financial advisor on earlier. So in keeping with that, pet insurance is vital. If you want to give a gift to somebody this Christmas for their pet, think about sponsoring some pet insurance for them. And don't forget the food bank for people and pets. But preventive care blood work, this cat 10 days ago looked perfect. And lo and behold, it was developing early kidney disease. And I think it's going to be really simple, easily treated. But it was stark. Like, it was pretty surprising to me how this cat looked so good. And yet the evidence was pretty plain that, cats are amazing at hiding things. And coming back around to what started all this, cats want to hide from company at Christmas. So there you go.
Dr. Jeff, with the blood work, is it on the same principle that humans would go get blood work done? You do it once a year just to keep an eye on things? Exactly the same. And some clients get a little anxious about, give me a cat name, Mercedes. Mercedes doesn't like having her blood done, or she doesn't like to be handled. This is going to be traumatic for her. She might cry a little bit. You might hear your cat or dog cry a little bit out back. I'll use my dog as an example. If you touch her feet, she's going to cry, but it has nothing. She doesn't even notice the blood work. Right.
So, keep that in mind, clients, when you're hearing an animal cry. Of course you're concerned, and I'm not dismissing the importance of, hey, how did my pet do out back? But the benefits of blood work can way outweigh the 10, 15 minutes at most it's going to take to get. I'm disappointed sometimes how we can do our best job in the exam room and still miss some subtle diseases that blood work only will tell us, especially in the dogs over 10 years and the cats over 12 years. There we go.
Dr. Jeff, I'm going to ask the question that many pet owners are asking right now, and they're yelling at their radios. How do I stop my pet from knocking my Christmas tree over?
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. To be honest, I don't. I had a small tree for years when I was a bachelor, and your curious cat can bring down the tree. End of story. The only way that we got around it was securing the tree to the, now that I'm married and all that stuff, the only way we could deal with one cat was to tie the tree to the wall. So, I think most people understand that, but there's no simple way to do that.
Yeah.
Just remember to block off access to the tree's watering dish. If you put fertilizers and oils and stuff in there or aspirin, make sure the cat can't get to that. And keep in mind that if you have a real tree, of course, the pine needles can cause irritation. And oh my God, cats are so foolish for eating stuff like that. And It can cause irritations, nausea. I've heard of intestinal obstruction from pine needles, but I've never experienced it.
Never mind the shiny balls and ornaments that are hanging off there that move when you touch them, right?
And isn't there a commercial on TV right now where a dog's bouncing around and half the tree is bare, the lower half of the tree
and
is
he's trying to jump up and get to the
Yeah, so there's another trick.
It becomes part of the Christmas conversation in my family is how many times the tree got knocked over.
I'm sorry that's your household topic.
That's how intelligent the conversations are around our Christmas table with all of the stuff going on in the world, right?
Leaving it be.
902-405-6000. Let's welcome Lee to the program. Lee, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. Your question for Dr. Goodall, please.
Yes, Dr. Goodall, I appreciate you taking my call today. I just have a quick question for you. I have a female 5.5-year-old Bernese mountain dog. She's a beautiful, beautiful pup. Anyway, the reason why I'm calling is she has a slight, about the size of a quarter cyst on her back near her bum. We took her to the vet, and the vet aspirated it and then looked at it under the microscope. And she said that all the cells looked fine. Of course, with her being a burner, our main concern was cancer. But thank God she said she doesn't think that it looks benign. It looks totally fine that way. But the question that I have for you here today is she said that it was totally up to us whether or not we get it removed. But her concern was that part of it was above the skin and part of it was below the skin. So it could possibly rupture. So she was sort of thinking maybe we should get it removed, but she also said that there were concerns, one, because of her age, because she's 5.5, and two, because of her weight. She's a little bit overweight. She's up to 122 pounds right now, of actually doing a procedure on her. And she said there were some significant risks with that. So she said she was going to leave it in our hands, but I'm just trying to get an opinion to make the best informed decision that I can as to whether or not we should get this removed.
So good question. And for everybody out there, what the caller's referring to likely is a sebaceous cyst or a lipoma. And good on the vet. Your vet should have done a fine needle aspirate, so give her a lot of credit. That's not inexpensive, but the way to go. So, I can't comment without seeing it, and that doesn't mean I'm asking you to book at our clinic. But with respect to removal, one thing I would say is make sure your mountain dog's on insurance. Because, you're right. The 5 is kind of old for a Bernese, which you hate to discuss, but there you go. So back to your question, do I get it removed or not? What it comes down to is it growing? Is it painful? And when you look at the growth, if you part the hair, is there like a little hole or a duct or a spot anywhere around it? If that's the case, then it's more likely a sebaceous gland, and these are glands that are benign, but they swell up. My dog has them along her body, which is a hint to you. I don't always remove them. But sometimes you touch one or two of them and she gets really painful. So if it's causing a quality of life issue, if it's leaking, like we had one client, a German Shepherd, who had sebaceous cysts all along his back. they would just express them. I don't recommend that, but that's what they did. Then when you express them, you can rupture them and cause more harm. So there's a debate there. If your dog has bad, and I'm going to finish, if your dog has bad teeth, consider doing a dental and have the growth removed at the same time, because it's a little hard on your pocketbook just to remove the growth only. See if you can bundle a few other services in there for a smaller fee.
Yeah, I know, that's a great idea. Unfortunately, we just got her dental done like a month and a half ago, so we should have waited.
Transfer over to us. We love clients like you. That's really good for her health. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, I guess for now we'll probably just leave it alone then, because it's not bothering her at all. We were just concerned. Like, I know cancer is really prominent in burners, so that's what we were petrified of when we felt it. But when she came back saying that it seems good. Now, is there a possibility that when she was moving around with the needle, she didn't get like enough of the cells, and it could potentially still be something dangerous? Or is she saying that it's probably benign, then it definitely is benign and we don't have to worry about it at all?
Okay, so good question. I'm just watching the clock here because they probably want to go to their update. But in the end, it's unlikely your vet missed it. That's where you're going. It's very unlikely to do that. I would keep an eye on it, make a review of that growth part of your annual exam, and then take a pair of calipers. I know it sounds silly, but buy a pair of calipers cheap at Princess Auto or whatever, and measure it, and then write it down once a month on a family calendar. And if it's growing, off it comes.
Okay, that's perfect. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it, Doctor.
Thank you for the call, Lee. I appreciate it. 902-405-6000. Dr. Goodall is correct. We're going to take a break. You're listening to our Ask the Vet segment. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. The segment is Ask the Vet. He is Dr. Jeff Goodall, and he's on the line. The telephone number is 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Jack's been on hold for a bit, so let's get him on the air. Jack, your question for Dr. Goodall, please.
Yes, thank you. My dog tested positive for Lyme disease approximately, I would say, 2.5 to 3 weeks ago. He was given doxycycline, 100 milligram pills, which are supposed to, it says on the bottle, for 30 days. Now, he's 100%. I asked the vet about a week later, should I just give him the pills until they're gone? Is that correct? Or I don't want to overload his with antibiotics. I don't know whether I'm doing the right thing,
Okay, so you broke up a little bit there. So your dog was diagnosed with Lyme disease on a blood test, and your vet has started your dog on doxycycline. And so was your dog painful before?
Pardon?
Was your dog painful before you started? Like at the time of the test, what was the reason for the testing?
Oh, because I just, everyone knows how to read their animal, and he couldn't even walk. He was having problems like his motor skills and everything. And he wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking. So yeah.
Okay, again, breaking up a little bit. So basically, pardon me?
Did I answer your question or no?
Well, it's breaking up a little bit, so let's not pursue it. I mean, in the end, your veterinarian has more than likely prescribed the right dose. And yes, 30 days is considered the timeline for general Lyme disease treatment. So the answer to your question is it's fine. And, like any antibiotic, when it's prescribed by your human or veterinary doctor, follow the label instructions and finish it off. We have way more problems with clients who don't finish their antibiotics the way they're supposed to. And so in the end, 30 days is exactly the right thing to do, and doxycycline is the drug of choice. So you're rocking.
Okay, thank you very much. And I was you answered my question 100%. Thank you very much. Have a great
day,
Jack.
Guys. All the best. 902-405-6000. How prevalent is Lyme disease in dogs, Doctor?
You know what? I don't know if I can answer that question other than to say that it's too prevalent. And, clients have to consider year-round, monthly tick prevention. But keep in mind, this gentleman was calling about Lyme disease, and we need to consider the fact that there are more than just one tick-borne disease out there. So annual tick-borne disease testing, in addition to Lyme disease, is strongly recommended if your dog's been bitten. Doxycycline is the drug of choice. Remember that 5 to some say 10% of dogs who are Lyme positive actually develop symptoms of disease, and that's either obvious lameness or having a moment. Oh, kidney disease. And that one's the one that's harder to detect. So part of your annual preventive care blood work that I was talking about earlier, you don't have to do everything you don't always have to scan or screen for kidney and liver disease or anemia and things like that. But annual tick disease testing is not a bad idea, even if your dog is on prevention, because prevention is only 98% effective. And people sometimes forget their monthly pill or the monthly topical treatment. So, it's something to consider because Lyme disease is easily treated. Oh, and then there's Lyme vaccine. So there's prevention with Lyme vaccine. And I have some clients who say, hey, I'm using the monthly preventative. I'm using the Lyme vaccine. Why do I need to test for tick diseases? Well, we're looking for the other ones and Lyme. So it's a little more to it than just Lyme disease prevention, if you will. So there you go.
So that yearly blood work that we were talking about, when you order that or the vet orders that, does it cover all of this stuff, or do you have to specifically look for different things?
Don't quite understand the question, but basically a tick disease test screen will cover Lyme and the other ones. Right. There you go.
Fair enough. We're going to take another break here very quickly, but before we get there, question on the email from Mark. It says, after hearing Dr. Goodall talk about kidney disease in a cat, my question is as follows. If cats are obligate carnivores, then why are we still feeding cats dry cat food?
Yeah, he's right. I completely agree.
Right?
I don't know why. Convenience of the owner is the typical one. I mean, canned cat food is a little more expensive, but he's exactly right. Well, I wouldn't say they're obligate carnivores. Got to be careful on that. But for the sake of discussion, let's say that. They should be eating meat only and water. The problem is that most meat diets are not balanced. So like raw foods, I'm not anti-raw foods, but they're not usually balanced. All cat foods have to have taurine in them because cats do develop heart disease if they don't have taurine in their diet. And yes, to come back full circle, canned food should be 80% of a cat's diet if and when possible. Some cats unfortunately refuse canned food, and so you should water it down. There's a whole thing about fountains for getting fluid into cats, but that's another discussion. And then what I say to clients is please feed canned food morning, noontime, or shortly after work and evening, and then leave a little, not even a palm full of dry food down at night so your cat doesn't bug you in the middle of the night for food.
That's more self-preservation
exactly
than anything, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's more self-preservation than anything, right? So the cat doesn't wake you up.
We'll go with that. It's self-preservation.
We're going to stop and take a news break. Dr. Jeff's here on the other side of it. This is Ask the Veterinarian. We're back in minutes.
It's the Todd Veinotte Show with Dan Alstrand on 95.7 News Radio, Halifax.
All right, our Ask the Vet segment continues. He is Dr. Jeff Goodall. If you have a question about your dog, your cat, your pet, great opportunity to get it answered. 902-405-6000. We welcome Carol Ann to the program. Carol Ann, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Good. Your question, please.
I have a 25-pound, almost 12-year-old poodle. He has a grade 3 right back leg luxating patella. And my question is, I'm wondering with his age, if you think surgery would be a good option. Now, his quality of life does not seem to be compromised. Like he's adjusting and hopping along just fine. And I'm just worried about his other leg down the road. But with his age, my concern is having him put under for surgery.
Okay, and how old was the dog again, sorry?
He'll be 12 in February.
That's really not old for a poodle, number one.
Okay.
Number two, I mean, it's never a bad idea to get a second opinion on anything if you have the time that the problem is not emergent or emergency related. Keep in mind that 50% of dogs, I used to do knee corrections too. 50% of dogs with one will probably have involvement of the other knee for whatever condition, whether it's, in this case, luxating patella or cruciate issues. I guess really what you're asking is, can a luxating patella cause long-term problems? Yeah. And a level 3 is a little bit more than you'd like to think is there. And it is going to cause more strain on the good knee while the dog sort of carries weight abnormally on the other knee. It's important to know that it's not a painful condition per se. You can see the knee probably pop as the dog walks. But if you don't fix it, you have to consider the possibility of arthritis developing and maybe decreased mobility. But that said, yes, the surgery is available. You have to balance off the cost and the prognosis. And someone who does the knees more regularly, so there are some I wouldn't say specialists, because we don't have orthopedic specialists in Halifax, but veterinary orthopedic surgeons. There we go. We don't have those specialists. But there are veterinarians like myself who again, I used to do them, that are really comfortable and confident in what's going on, and getting his or her opinion is just a perfect way to start planning it out, because it's not going to be inexpensive. I don't know what the price would be, but it's not going to be inexpensive. And if you do the surgery on the affected knee before the other knee becomes affected, if you will, then the prognosis is pretty much excellent. And your other concern, if I heard you right, was anesthesia. And you can modify and mitigate the risks of anesthesia with some simple things you can discuss with your vet. For those listening, get your pen and paper. You want to ask, hey, can I get preoperative blood screening? Can I get maybe a urinalysis screen? If the dog has a history of any heart issues, or cat for that matter, or is of an age and yours is in the zone, you might want a preoperative ECG sent for evaluation. And I know these things are not totally inexpensive, but that mitigates your risk and concerns for your dog. Having said that, and here almost endeth the lesson, make sure that they're heating the dog on the table, keeping them nice and warm. IV fluids, those things make the medications and anesthesia itself, recovery from the anesthesia, so much simpler. We at our clinic, we pride ourselves on the 99.5% of the dogs and cats walking out like they weren't done, and typically the same day. So even when I used to do knees, it was typically the same day I'd send them home. They want to be home with their parents. They don't want to be in the clinic. There you go.
Wow, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Hope that helps.
It certainly does.
Thanks, Caroline. I appreciate it. Best of luck. 902-405-6000. Dr. Jeff, see if we can squeeze one more in here before we run out of time. Welcome, Ben, to the show. Ben, how are you?
Great, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Good. Your question for the doctor, please.
Great. Thanks for taking my call. We have a rescued beagle from a lab in Texas. He's 6 years old, and the only life he's seen is in the lab. And I think that he's like being a puppy, and he's looking and he's eating anything that he can get his hands on, paws on. And I think he's like eating bark, and I'm just assuming that it's scratching his throat. And afterwards, he goes around and he pulls the fur out of his tail to seem to like trying to flush it down, and licking everything, trying to get something to flush it down. I don't know if it's a behavior, but that's just what I'm thinking it is.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding the problem. This is a younger dog under 1 year of age, is that correct?
No, he's 6 years old. He was rescued from a lab in Texas. We don't know what they did at this lab, but yeah. So so he's never had any training. He's just lived in a cage his whole life for 6 years.
Right. So this is more than likely an anxietal or behavior issue. It's really not medical. In that sense, I doubt your dog is eating bark because it's got, like, you're not saying this, but just for the listeners, there's no nutritional deficiency or anything like that. And the tail, hair, chasing, pulling, whatever, is likely not related to what he's eating at all. Tail chasing behavior or tail abuse or whatever. Unfortunately, these animals that are kept in, let's just say, severe confinement can have or come out when they're homed in areas where they weren't. I can't really explain it, but basically these dogs can get anxietal behaviors that need to be modified and worked with. And it sounds like this little guy, and he may even just be bored in the sense, like he's kind of weary about, even though he's outside and maybe he's not getting the stimulation he needs. So I would talk with your veterinarian at your earliest opportunity by email to start, and then get the dog in for an assessment. And then he or she, the veterinarian, may turn around and say, hey, time to get to a behaviorist. Maybe medication isn't an option here, because tail chasing is kind of a simple thing to work with the sooner we work with it. With your dog, we don't know the first 6 years, and good for you to rescue it, but we really don't know. And sometimes it can be attention-seeking behavior in my experience. In other words, I had a dog who knew if I spoke up to her, not yelled at her, but spoke up to her for doing something, she would kind of get the attention she wanted, and she'd do it again. So there you go.
But it seems like the only reason why I say bark is it's like he will go and take something and want to chew on it, then we have to tell him no because he doesn't understand what's his toys and what's not his toys. And I'm wondering if he did eat bark, would that scratch like the roof of his mouth and cause him to want to put something else in there to take that away? It's kind of like an itchy eye. You have something in your eye, and the more you itch it, the worse it gets.
I see your thinking, and I have not ever experienced that. I really doubt he's doing this. I'll put it this way, bark rarely affects the roof of the mouth or the throat, because so many labs and other dogs out there eat bark, and then they love to be chased while they're doing it. I really doubt it's anything like that at this point. Given what information I can understand here.
Okay, yeah, we're just concerned that it's something because it happens, then we have to change his food, and then he gets diarrhea after this, and then once we go back to a plain bland rice, everything is fine. And then as soon as we start to add kibbles to it, just chunks, dry food, then he gets back to a diarrhea and this state again, like licking everything.
Okay, well, the question's becoming more complicated now, and I really can't advise you too much by phone. I would drop an email to your vet, get some input there, because the more often you flip foods and try different things, it doesn't sound like it's working. So you need some guidance from someone who knows the whole situation better than I. I hope that helps a little bit.
No, it does, because we were just debating whether to go or is it something simple, but no, we got to take him in. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Best of luck. 902-405-6000. Dr. Jeff, we've got about 3 minutes left here. I got an email question. The emailer asking us for some help with her 17 to 18 pound cat. She says, my cat is fat. How do I slim her down?
So weight gain in cats is really tough. And the earlier person who emailed about cat food and dry food, there is some discussion in the profession that dry food puts weight on. And once it's on, it's really difficult to get it off. And starving a cat, like a dog or yourself, you can put yourself on a reduced amount of food and have more exercise and those kind of things. And you can do that with a dog. With a cat, that can actually cause ill health and liver problems. So for this client, it's worth an email to their vet, because low-fat food doesn't work, right? I mean, how many low-fat foods for people are out there, and, obesity is still a problem.
Right.
There is some discussion about Ozempic-like drugs in the profession. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago where this was coming up, and the data is still very mixed, so we're not going to have that miracle shot there. But low-fat foods don't work. Is there such a thing as a low-fat Oreo cookie, for God's sake? Anyway, but there are a few diets that increase the protein and decrease some of the carbohydrates in the canned food, and you can start a very slow, like 0.5% per month weight loss program. And if you do the math, 0.5% on however heavy this cat is, it's going to take a while. So in the end, get some veterinary guidance. Don't go out and buy low-fat food, because it's mostly bogus. And cats will have to lose weight very gradually under controlled circumstances with veterinary input, maybe a couple times a year, to result in slow, gradual weight loss. If not, their livers fail, and we get all kinds of other problems.
Dr. Jeff, we're out of time. I appreciate yours. Talk to you next month.
Okay, thanks for having me on. Have a great one. Thanks for the great music, and Todd, come on back soon.
He's back tomorrow, Dr. Jeff, so you have to tune in. Todd will be in the chair tomorrow, and I'll get a day off.
No offense, Dan. You take care. Bye-bye.
All right. That is Dr. Jeff Goodall. He's here once a month to answer your questions. As I mentioned, Todd will be in the chair tomorrow. He's coming back for his Friday edition of the program. All of the regular features will be there, including the Friday free-for-all. So you get a chance to pick Todd's brain on the issues that have been before us this week. I'm looking forward to listening to that. It's always a lot of fun. Thank you very much to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass for an outstanding job every day, but particularly today. Our thanks to Clinton for coming in and spending a Mortgage 101 with us. That was a lot of fun. I hope that if you missed any of it or you want to hear it again, log on to our website, halifax.citynews.ca, go to the listen button. Vanessa will have that posted here very shortly, and you can go back and listen to some of the great information that we got in that segment. Thanks to everybody who picked up the phone, dialed the numbers, and joined the conversation. You make my day. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Stay out of trouble. I'll see you on Monday, and be kind to one another.
CJNI FM,
a Rogers radio station.
Number 1 for breaking news, traffic, and weather. 95.7 News Radio, Halifax.
Welcome back. He's Dr. Jeff Goodall. I'm Dan Alstrand. This is Ask the Vet. If you have a question about your dog, your cat, your pet, here is an opportunity to get it answered. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Just like Colleen did. We welcome Colleen to the program. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you.
Your question, please.
So I have a street stray cat that we picked up. So he's somewhere between the age of 12 and 15. And after I feed him breakfast in the morning, he goes around the house and starts yelling. I mean, really loud. No reason whatsoever. And this will go on for up to about a half hour. And he'll also do it again in the evenings. What can you tell me about this?
Boy, that's a tough one without knowing the cat, to be honest. I mean, cats can, I can't remember. I think it's like 15 or 20 different vocalization patterns in each cat. And it's difficult to understand what the vocalization means, to be honest. Does he do it at night as well or just at breakfast?
He'll do it sometimes in the evening, you're right. He's in good health, though. I mean, and he can be running around and then stop and start yelling. No reason.
Right. So the question really is, can vocalization be a sign of a serious problem? That's really where the crux of the point here. And if it's only recent, like for the viewing audience, good Lord. Yeah, I want a TV show too, Dan.
Okay, well, we'll work on that.
For the listening audience, basically, if a cat is generally quiet and recently begins to vocalize, then I would argue that there's an underlying physical behavioral disorder developing. For example, pain or difficulty sleeping or thyroid abnormalities. In your case, it sounds like he or she's been doing that since the day you brought that cat in. Is that right?
No, actually, only in the last about 8 months.
Okay, well then I start wondering about an underlying behavioral disorder. To be honest, I'm not saying you have to rush to the vet tomorrow, but things like just like people, cats and dogs and other animals over time can develop anxiety that wasn't there before, can be developing social stress. Really, and what I mean by social is within the home, stress to something else, whatever that might be. Changes in patterns of work, changes in rules, even the daylight savings can cause some behaviors. In cats older than, say, 10, 12 years of age, especially with vocalization, I wonder about cognitive decline or thyroid disorder. I went through what you're talking about with one of my cats, and fluoxetine, generic from the pharmacy, because, vets carry it, but it might be a little bit more expensive through your veterinarian. Not always the case, but never a bad idea if your veterinarian and you come to a consensus on fluoxetine, which is Prozac, or other behavior therapy modifiers. You can talk about getting that from a local pharmacy or your vet. But cats that are older than, say, 12 years of age could be suffering from a behavioral disorder like cognitive dysfunction. So there you go. Why it's associated only with food, I don't know the answer. Let's put it that way. But I doubt it's a serious problem, but it's worth talking about at your annual visit.
All right, then. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Colleen. 902-405-6000. Yeah, that must be a bit, unsettling that the cat just started screaming for no reason. 902-405-6000 is the number. I got an email question, Dr. Jeff. It reads like this. We are looking for, and it's about food. We're looking for soft food for an older cat. He's 16. He's been eating Royal Canin aging 12-plus chicken on a regular basis for many years. Now, we've noticed changes in the product. We noticed less texture, change in color and smell. He's no longer seeming to enjoy it or doesn't rush to eat it and leaves more than he has before. If it isn't an appetite issue because he eats all the IMS soft food that we give him at the time, we're concerned about getting him the proper nutrients and want the best soft food from him. He only deserves the best.
So I don't know if you hear my dog's barking in the background. I'm going to have to let her out here in a minute. But basically, there's no easy answer to any question like this because, veterinarians each of us have our own biases. So if you're using the early senior food, sorry, I'm going to have to walk over the door here.
Sure.
If you're using the early senior food, then talk to your veterinarian and go to your pet store. And I'm not anti-pet store advice when it comes to pet foods generally, but in the end, it's a tough one to answer. Royal Canin may have changed their formulation, so look at Purina One. Look at Hill's Science Diet. There's prescription diet, of course, and your veterinarian can talk to you about that. It might be worth an email to your vet. Actually, there's my recommendation. Email your veterinarian. They know your cat better than I do, and see what they have to say, and go from there.
Another email question, Dr. Jeff. It says you mentioned pet insurance. Is it expensive, and there is a number of options out there, is there not?
Yes, and I can't answer the question, is it expensive? Because sadly, what's expensive to one person isn't expensive to another. So I don't know the answer to that. I think it's a very prudent and worthy it's time well spent, let's put it that way.
Fair.
Because Trupanion, Pets Plus Us, there's more. I just don't always. I don't really deal with pet insurance in my clinic. My staff do, and I'm very thankful for my staff. So I don't know what the prices are, to be honest. And I would argue there's some riders and add-ons you can make. I think for the average cat, there's some basic insurance in case of urinary blockages and what have you. Outside cat, you want insurance on that because they're going to get into something almost always or get into a fight. With dogs, it really depends on the breed of the dog, but insurance, I just can't overstate its value. Let's be straight. Prices are not getting better for anybody. And veterinary medicine, at least in my experience in the Halifax regional municipality, the fees are under a lot of pressure because of certain factors I don't want to get into that are forcing the business owners to push prices up to compensate for certain expenses that we just can't manage otherwise. Because unfortunately, we have to keep the lights on, meet our banker requirements, of course, meet the staff requirements, make sure they're certainly well paid and well cared for and appreciated. So there's so many factors. Just go for the pet insurance. That's the short answer. But I don't know the expense.
And maybe you can't answer this question, but there obviously, there would be you mentioned a bunch of different riders and a bunch of different things. You need to really tailor that to your individual pet, correct?
Well, I'll put it this way. I should be careful saying riders because that used to be the issue. Now it seems, and I'm going to speak of one product over another.
Sure.
Sorry, Pets Plus Us. I just don't know you that well. But Trupanion seems to have a very simple approach. They have direct billing. So if you go into your clinic and, you need something, it's one less hurdle you have to get over to worry about. In other words, I just talked about preventive care, blood work at the top of this segment. Oh my God, that's going to be $200-$300. I can't afford that today, but I really want it because I'm worried for my pet's general well-being. Well, pet insurance is going to take care of that. So I should be careful. There's probably not that many riders anymore. Got to remember, I've been at this almost 35 years now, so
seen a lot of change. We'll say, right?
Has changed for the better. Yes, and it's changed for the better, and it's a lot simpler than it used to be. You can go online, look at Pets Plus Us, look at Trupanion. Depending on where you live, there's other options, and balance them out to each other. And then here it comes: email your veterinarian and ask his or her opinion.
That's why we have a vet, right? They can answer our questions.
That's why.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Jeff, we're going to take our last break here before with the top of the hour. We're going to come back. Carol Ann's on the line. She'll be the first up. You're listening to our Ask the Pet segment. He's Dr. Jeff Goodall. We are back in minutes.